Now you have your website, you just need to add the actual store component to it. Again, this is very easy thanks to tools that practically automate the process for you. The only downside is that there isn't much of an obvious choice when it comes to your e-commerce store. That is to say that no single e-commerce platform stands out in the way that WordPress does. It just means you need to think a little and pick the option that suits your needs best. This video will help you to make that choice and then talk you through the process of setting up. Okay, let's look at the top e-commerce platforms that you have to choose from. Remember in the last video when we said that you had the option of a hosted WordPress site? Well, you also have the option of choosing either hosted or self-hosted e-commerce platforms. And just to reiterate, a hosted e-commerce platform is one that we stored on an external website rather than your own. That means you'll create your store a little like you would a profile on a social media site. It means less work, but it also means that you'll have less flexibility. Here are some of the top hosted platforms. Shopify, which you'll find here at shopify.com, or if you're in the UK like I am at the time that I'm making this video, it'll redirect you to the local site, which is shopify.co.uk, and there are other local versions of it as well, and it's all to do with the currency and the taxes and that sort of thing. But Shopify is by far one of the most popular e-commerce solutions around, and it's one that nearly everyone's heard of. Like WordPress, it comes with a huge amount of support, plugins, and themes, meaning that you can tailor it to your exact needs, and meaning that there are plenty of ways that you can boost your sales. Some of these plugins let you do powerful things like tracking your visitors and integrating email marketing, or like selling digital products and delivering them automatically. It does lack some of the customization of hosted solutions, however. For example, there's no option to create your own custom checkout page. In terms of products, Shopify can support up to 5,000 different items, which is more than enough for most purposes. The basic Shopify membership is free, but you might need to pay if you want to upgrade to some of the more advanced features. Still, it's not prohibitively expensive. BigCommerce is hosted much like Shopify and is also suitable for up to 5,000 products. It's another solid choice, but it falls a little short of Shopify thanks to a higher price point. Moreover, BigCommerce is less well known than Shopify, meaning that it doesn't have quite the same number of plugins or features. If you want to create a store that is in any way unusual, you should probably check first to make sure that BigCommerce can support whatever it is that you're planning on doing. BigCommerce has one big advantage though, and that's that it provides excellent support for international payments right out of the box. Now, this might be a big deal if you plan on selling to the US and the UK and you don't know whether to price your prices in GBP or US dollars or that sort of thing, as they do have quite a lot of support for that. And you can find out more here at bigcommerce.com. And finally, there's Magento. Now, Magento, which you can find out more here at magento.com, is one of the best hosted solutions around in terms of its customization and features, and is an excellent choice if you want to build something very unique with lots of power under the hood. This is the option that the big businesses with lots of money and tons of stock will want to use. If you have aspirations of taking on Amazon, uh, in which case you're mad, but anyway, Magento is the best non-custom built option. Magento supports up to 50,000 items and is installed independently from your WordPress site. The downside is that it's very fiddly and confusing if you're a new user. So, in other words, unless you have a good development team behind you or you're a developer yourself, you should probably stick with something easier, at least to begin with. And this is a point we should quickly make. When setting up your business, always think about the path of least resistance. Don't make extra work for yourself just because you want the pride of taking the less easy route. It's not good business. Focus on keeping your overheads, both time and money, low and getting quickly to the point where you can reliably start making money. Don't let ego get in the way of good business sense. Hosting your e-commerce solution on your server is probably the most popular solution. The only downside, of course, is if your web server crashes, you can lose all your orders. So it's best to back up at least once every day. Now let's look at some of the best self-hosted solutions. The first one is WooCommerce. And WooCommerce, which you can find out more here at woocommerce.com, is the self-hosted option that we would recommend. And what makes this such a great choice is that it's actually a WordPress plugin. And this means that you're not installing anything extra at all, and the whole process of setting up is incredibly simple. There are free and paid for versions. You can install the free version from within the WordPress dashboard like any other plugin. Just do a search for WooCommerce and you can install it. Or you can upgrade to the paid for version, which you can install from their website, as I said here, woocommerce.com. For most people, the free version is going to be fine just to start up with. And then once you've started to build your business, you're making some sales, then it's worth investing in the paid for version. Now, of course, because this is a plugin, this does mean that your store is going to replace the website that you already had. And this means that you need to consider this right from the start, or you need to set up a secondary domain for your shop and then link the two together. Note that even if it does replace your site, though, you can still have a blog on the store, that it doesn't take over that particular part of the site. Now, WooCommerce has tons of support and an endless number of themes and other plugins. And this will make running your store significantly easier, and it makes it another great choice from a business perspective. One limitation of WooCommerce, though, is that it can only stock 500 items max. Now, this won't be a problem for most businesses starting out, but if you have plans to expand, then it's something that you might want to consider. Volusion, which you can find out more about here at volusion.com, is a WordPress plugin, but it's also somewhat unique in a number of ways. And that's because it isn't just e-commerce, but it's also an email autoresponder and a whole lot more. Volusion lets you track your visitors and your leads and see who's looking at your products and who's reading your emails. Volusion is something that many internet marketer types might feel quite at home with, but note that it's not particularly powerful or feature packed when compared to other e-commerce solutions, and it's only really suitable for a small number of products. We're not going to go through every single e-commerce platform setup process here. However, as Shopify and WooCommerce are probably the best hosted and self-hosted options, respectively, it might be useful to look at least two platforms and how you get started. We'll look at Shopify in this video and WooCommerce in the next one. Shopify offers a 14-day free trial, which makes it easy to set up and start playing around and to decide if this is the right choice for you. To get started with that, head over to Shopify's site, and then you can either enter your email address in here and click on Start Your Free Trial, or you can come up here to Get Started. So just click here on Get Started. And it takes you through to this page where it says Start Your Free 14-day trial of Shopify, and you enter in your email address, password and your store name, and then you click here to create your store. So let me just pause the video while I do that. Okay, that's done. So all I need to do now is click here where it says create your store. And it goes through all this sort of processes. And there we go, it says success, your store is ready to go. Now you have to add an address to set up currencies and tax rates. So again, I'll just pause the video while I do that. Okay, I've got all that in. This is all made up, by the way. So please don't turn up at my office looking for me because I don't really work there. Okay, so then just simply click on Next. Okay, then they want some information about yourself. They want to know, are you already selling? And you can choose from these options here. So I'm just playing around, so I'll put that in. And how much revenue does your business currently make in a year? Well, I'm just getting started, so we'll say $0. And then, are you setting up the store for a client? If you are, then you check that box there, and then click here that says enter my store. And it takes a moment or two to whirl through. And there we go. You get the welcome message here, and it says your trial has just started. So you've got the trial period to see if this is right for you. I'll just talk you through the interface here. It's fairly straightforward. Um, you've got, you can select a theme for your website. So you can go through and choose from these various ones that they have here. And you can see if I scroll down, you've got quite a selection to choose from. These are free themes, or you can also buy a premium theme as well via their theme store. Let's just go back here. Go back to the home here. You can then click here to add a product to your store. Just click on that one so you can see what it looks like. You add a description and a longer description. You can give it a product type, vendor, etc. Then you want to add an image which you can upload from your computer. You want to make sure that it's a nice, compelling image, something that's going to encourage people to actually make a purchase. Of course, you'll also need to add payment details if you want to start getting paid. With all that done, your store is ready to go live. It really is that quick and easy to start selling and to start profiting in a big way, well, potentially. If you want to add extra functionality to your site, you can start adding apps as well, which work just like WordPress plugins to enhance the features of your store. There are numerous apps that you can add to a Shopify store, and you can find them by selecting Apps on the left-hand side of the screen in the burger menu. For example, if you want to sell digital products, then you can do this by using digital downloads. This app allows you to sell your products digitally and thereby make money from ebooks, etc., without having to email them to your buyers. Another great one is Pre-Order Manager. And this does what it says, and it lets people pre-order your forthcoming products. The great thing about this is you can use it to get people excited about your forthcoming products and to build a buzz, and it can even be a way to make sure that there's a market for your product before you invest too much time into creating it. And finally, consider recurring orders by Bold Apps. This app allows you to charge your customers on a recurring basis. This is excellent for selling your products on a regular basis. For instance, if your customers want a monthly supply of protein shake, or if they want a subscription that will give them something new to read every week. Either way, recurring orders are very good for your cash flow, as they can provide you with a much more stable and predictable income, and they convince your customers to potentially lay down more money for what you're selling up front. If you thought creating a Shopify store was easy, creating a WooCommerce store is even easier. The free version of WooCommerce is very easy to install via the WordPress dashboard. What you want to do is log in, click on plugins, and then add new. And then where it says search plugins, you type in WooCommerce and then enter. And you can see it shows it here, WooCommerce by Woo Themes. And then you simply click here where it says install now. And then click where it says activate plugin. Takes you through to this page, and this is the setup page. You can actually skip the setup if you want, although it's a good idea to just simply click here on Let's Go and then follow the instructions. And it takes you through to this page, the page setup. And this is where WooCommerce will add 4 pages to your WordPress site in order for it to work properly. And let me just scroll down a bit here. Those pages are shop, and this is the shop page where you'll display your products. Cart, this is the shopping cart page. Checkout, pretty self-explanatory, and my account, and this is where registered customers will be able to manage their account details and view past orders. And it says here at the bottom, once created, these pages can be managed from your admin dashboard. So let's click here on continue. Then you want to have your store locale set up. And this is going to vary, obviously, depending on where you are in the world. They want to know where your store is based, the currency that you're going to use, which unit should be used for product weights, and which unit should be used for product dimensions. And it'll probably take this from your IP address from where your hosting is. So, of course, if your hosting is in a different country to where you are actually based, you might need to change these, but it's quite simple. You can just simply change them from the drop-down menu here and so on. And if you deal in a different currency, you can change it here. Again, all sorts of different currencies that you've got here. So it's fully customizable. I'm going to leave all these at the default settings and click here on continue. Now it wants to know about shipping and tax. Now, if you're selling a physical product, then yes, you want to check this box that says, yes, I will be shipping physical goods to customers. And if you're going to be charging sales tax, you want to check this box here, yes, I will be charging sales tax. Obviously, this depends on where you are. In countries in the EU, there are thresholds as to whether or not you have to charge VAT. So if you're not reaching that threshold, then you don't need to charge VAT, so you can leave this box unchecked. If you're in the US and you have to charge sales tax based on your location, on the state that you live in, or the town or city, then obviously you would need to check this box as well. So let's just check this box, yes. And then you want to know how you're going to enter the product prices, whether they're going to be inclusive of tax or exclusive of tax. In the UK and most EU countries, the prices are inclusive of tax. So I'm going to check that radio button. In the US, of course, most prices are exclusive of tax, so you'll need to keep this radio button checked. Then they'll want to know your country, state if you're in the US or Australia, and the tax rate. And as you can see here in the UK, our VAT rate is an eye-watering 20%. So that's all set up. So I'm now going to click here on continue. Next step is to set up payments. And it comes with a couple pre-installed, PayPal and Stripe, but you can also take additional payment methods, although there is an extra charge for the extra plugin. You can take PayPal, check payments, BACS transfer, or cash on delivery. I suspect most people who are watching this video will probably want to accept PayPal, so let's check that. Now you want to enter your PayPal email address in here and then click on here for continue. And once that's done, you can choose whether or not you want WooCommerce to collect non-sensitive diagnostic data and usage information. I'm going to click no thanks. And then that's it. You can create your first product by clicking on this button here. When you go back to the WordPress dashboard, you'll find that there's now a couple of extra tabs here at the side. You've got your WooCommerce tab where you've got your orders, coupons, reports, settings, system status, and add-ons. And you've also got your products. You can add a product, categories, tags, etc. If I click on add a product, you can see that the page and the procedure are very similar to the Shopify sales page and add a product, etc., that we looked at in the last video. One of the great things about WooCommerce is that they do come with a lot of support. And if you go to support.woothemes.com, it takes you through to this page here. There's a knowledge base. You can search for answers if you're having a problem. It also has a very extensive video tutorial series that you can access from within this page. You've got documentation. There's quite a strong community because it is very well used. And also, you've got things like troubleshooting tips and a whole lot of other stuff as well. And it's well worth a visit to this site because it can provide you with an awful lot of information. Now that you have your store, you're probably excited to start designing it and selling it. Creating websites using these kinds of tools is a lot of fun because all the technical stuff is done for you. All you need to worry about is choosing the themes that you like the look of, deciding what colors to use, etc., etc. But don't get too carried away. While it's true that you can have a lot of fun here, remember that the end objective is to sell more items. And that means you need to think carefully about the layout and design of your site. And specifically, you need to make sure that it's designed in a way that will encourage sales. This in turn comes down to a number of consideration and design choices. If you were the manager of a high street store or a supermarket, then a big part of your job would be to decide how to lay out all of the products in that store so that they would sell optimally. This means getting people to walk through specific aisles in order to find the best sellers, thereby being exposed to other products they might be interested in but hadn't considered. In other words, the way you set out a brick and mortar store can end up having a big impact on the number of sales you make, and this comes down to basic psychology. Of course, there aren't quite as many factors for you to consider if you're going to be selling products online, but there are still some ways that you can influence the decisions of your buyers. Now, here are just a few things to keep in mind. One very important consideration for your store is the security and the barriers to sale. Remember, right at the start of the series, we discussed the growth of e-commerce and why it hasn't already grown beyond brick and mortar sales. The reason? Well, people are still concerned about spending money online. If you want to sell to the broadest range of people possible, you need to ensure your site looks official and trustworthy. This is why it's so important to use a professional looking design and to create a professional looking brand with a high quality logo. Something as simple as a low resolution image, a typo, or copyright 2010 can make your website look less trustworthy and cause people to leave. Another way to overcome this barrier to sale is to let people leave reviews on your store. This is something many people will be nervous to do, seeing as it can potentially mean people end up leaving bad reviews. But overall, letting people leave reviews means your customers can see other people have bought from you and received your products. If you respond to negative reviews, this will also reassure your customers that you're listening and that you care about what they have to say. Another barrier to sale is the time and effort involved in making a purchase. Believe it or not, this is actually a big deal, and surveys show that people are much less likely to buy from a store if they need to set up an account first. If you want to sell as much as possible, then, you need to make the process of buying from you as streamlined and simple as possible. Amazon does this incredibly well with its buy with one click system. But even if you were to mimic something like this for your site, your visitors might still be required to create an account the first time they shop with you, which could mean having to input their card details, their delivery address, etc., etc. Again, try to make all this as simple as possible to make sure it isn't off-putting for your visitors. For example, one thing you can do is to use PayPal to handle your checkout process. This can help people feel more secure shopping from your site. They don't have to input their details. And it makes it a lot easier for them to buy from you. POS stands for point of sale, and it's a concept that relates to the barrier to sale that we were just talking about. In a high street store, you'll often find something called point of sale display. This is a display that will promote and sell a cheap product while people are waiting in the queue. You've no doubt encountered these before, and that's because they work. The thing to understand is that when someone has made the decision to buy from you, they will already have made that important psychological step that turns them into a prospective buyer. Prior to this point, they're still umming and ahhing about whether they want to bother setting up an account or whether they want the guilt of spending money. Once they're checked out, they've already gone through the hard bit. Convincing someone to add something small to their order now is actually relatively easy and means you can increase your profits further. Of course, you don't have a queue online, so your point of sale is the checkout page. That's why you'll often find sites offering to add extras to your order, things like gift wrapping for a small fee. On an unrelated note, you also need to think carefully about the color scheme and palette of your e-commerce site design. What's key to understand here is that different colors can have different effects on your customers. For example, the colors red and orange actually make people feel slightly more impatient and have even been shown to elevate the heart rate. People very often find red color schemes somewhat uncomfortable, and this can be used to your advantage. For example, this is actually the reason that a lot of fast food joints are red or orange in their color scheme. The uncomfortable color palette means that people don't quite feel comfortable to spend a long time eating, and this means that the store can accommodate a higher turnover of customers and make more profit as a result. And likewise, it turns out that if a buy now button is red, it becomes more likely to be clicked more regularly. Conversely, though, if you want people to take their time to explore your site in a sort of more leisurely manner, then you need to make sure that you use cool and relaxing colors, like blues. Also important is to make sure that your color scheme allows you to use contrast. In other words, you need to avoid making your color palette too bright and your layout too busy. If you do that, it'll be impossible to draw attention to anything. Your aim is to make sure you can control the attention of your visitors and to get them to look at the products you're interested in selling. If everything is red and moving, then people won't know where they should be looking. In the last video, we talked about the impact that design has on your ability to sell. But this is actually only one of the tricks that you have up your sleeve. Also available is your ability to alter the pricing and to add smart descriptions to your store. This can not only make your items more affordable and therefore increase the number of people who can and will spring the cash for them, but it can actually have a range of subtle psychological effects as well. Let's talk about some pricing strategies. And a good one is special offers and deals, or also scarcity. And a special offer is a great way to encourage more people to buy your products. And if you price this offer correctly, then the increase in turnover should also help to increase your profits. In other words, you might lose out on each individual item, but by selling more items, you can still increase overall earnings. But special offers and deals also have another effect. They introduce time pressure. People know offers last only for a finite amount of time, and thus, by introducing special offers and deals, you'll automatically make people want to buy more quickly instead of going away to think about it. This in turn is very valuable for you. Why? Because people are most likely to buy things when they act impulsively. People buy most of the time based on emotion, not reason. So if you can get them to act quickly, they'll be much more likely to spend the cash than if you give them time to go away and mull it over. By using an incentive to act faster, you thereby make them act more quickly and act more impulsively. and as such, they'll be much more likely to buy from you. Another way to make your audience act quicker is to make the products limited in stock. This creates scarcity, and in doing that, in turn, also makes your items more valuable and thus desirable. People want things that no one else can have. We talked about color contrast earlier and making your products physically stand out on your digital shelf. But there's another type of contrast to consider too, and that's the contrast between your price points. Whether we like it or not, our brains tend to automatically judge the value of something by comparing and contrasting it with other things. Something expensive only seems expensive, often, insofar as it is expensive compared to other things. What this means is that you can easily make something look a lot more affordable by putting it next to something very expensive. And at the same time, doing this can also help make the expensive items seem more premium and thereby luxury and desirable. And furthermore, this means you'll have more luck selling point of sale options and upselling when the customer is already spending more. When someone is spending $500 on your website, they won't think much about adding $10 extra for a discounted product. But if they're only spending $5, then they'll be unlikely to want to add another $10 to the order. Think about this when choosing what to upsell and how to utilize POS. Another option is to let your customers create their own bundles. Now, bundling essentially means that your customers can choose precisely which items they want and which ones they don't need, and thereby they can save money by buying in bulk but not ending up with items that they don't want. Bundling is very effective because it ensures that you have at least one option for every type of buyer. At the same time, it makes people feel as though they're getting a better deal while actually encouraging them to spend more in your store. It's a genuine win-win scenario. When pricing your products, you might decide to include a high ticket item that will land you a large amount of profit per sale. The aim is that just a couple of sales of this item will be enough to keep you in profit, and in this regard, you might actually use your other products in order to encourage sales of those high ticket items. For example, if you sell a lot of expensive products, consider adding something cheap so your customers can get used to shopping with you in a low risk manner. This way, you can overcome the barrier to sale so that all you have left to do is encourage your visitors to spend the money on that product. Another thing that can make a big difference is the way you write descriptions for your products. Here, your objective is to make sure that people act on impulse and are moved to spend money right there and then rather than going away to think about it. To that end, good persuasive writing for sales will need to focus on the emotional aspect of the product, and this means that you're going to emphasize the value proposition. A value proposition basically describes how a product will improve someone's life. In other words, don't just look at the sum of the parts, but what people actually want to gain from spending the money. For example, people don't buy dumbbells because they need something heavy. People buy dumbbells because they want to be strong, toned, healthy, attractive, and confident. This is what you need to emphasize in your pitch because it will ensure that your prospective customers start imagining what life could be like after they've purchased your item. Meanwhile, try to get people to imagine what your product will be like to own. Companies like Apple always use words like feel and touch a lot, and emphasize how quickly they can get their hands on it. Finally, there's split testing. We've seen how color, layout, and even wording can improve the effectiveness of your store and help you to get more sales. If you get all this right, then you'll be improving your optimization to increase conversions. But the question is how to know if everything that you're doing is working. And to answer that question, you can use something called split testing. This basically means creating two different listings for the same product, one using a red font, for example, and one using a blue font. You then observe how each listing performs over time and ultimately compare the results to see which design got the most sales. Once you have your answer, you adopt the winning change, and this way you can evolve your site over time until it's perfectly optimized to convert the highest percentage of visitors possible into paying customers. If you took on board everything we covered in the last video, then you should now have an online store that's highly effective at converting visitors into paying customers. You're drawing attention, making your products look desirable, and then maximizing the profits from each sale that you make. All that's left is to make sure as many people as possible are finding your website. And if you do this right, then your business will start to scale and you can invest more back into marketing. Here are some strategies you can use. Before you start spending money on adverts, SEO might be a better first port of call. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization and is essentially the process of optimizing a website and link strategy so that your store is easy to find on Google when people search for it. To do this, you often begin by identifying a search term, otherwise known as a key phrase, such as buy hats online. Only you won't want to choose buy hats online because that will be very competitive and very difficult to rank for. This is why it's such a good idea to have a particular target audience and a particular type of product. Remember how we discussed selling brightly colored shirts? Well, brightly colored shirts is likely a key phrase that people look for, but which isn't quite as competitive. To start ranking for this term, you need to ensure that you have a well-optimized website, meaning it's fast, mobile-friendly, and easy to navigate, and that you include the keywords you've selected in your descriptions and on your blog occasionally. Aim for around 1% density, so for every 100 words you can include the key phrase once. It's also useful to include it in headers and meta descriptions and then to try and build as many links as possible on relevant websites. Now, this might mean getting a fashion blog to link to you, for example. You might be able to do this by providing them with free content, which is called guest posting. And speaking of content, content marketing is also a fantastic tool you can use. This basically means you're running a blog and the aim is to get people to subscribe and to look for your site when they want information relevant to your industry. So if you sell gardening tools, you should have an authoritative blog on gardening that people can subscribe to. In doing this, you'll now have an audience that trusts your recommendations and that listens to what you say. You can now recommend them your own products and even provide them with special offers. Email marketing goes hand in hand with content marketing. Try to build the trust of your audience to the point where they're happy to hand over their contact details, then subtly sell your products to them. Building an audience for your blog is, of course, the tricky part, but you can do this by running a social media account and by using SEO. And speaking of social media, this can also be used to directly sell your products. One great way to do this is by promoting the value proposition and the lifestyle that your products support. So, if you want people to buy your fitness books, this might mean running an Instagram account that includes lots of pictures of you training in the gym. You can also use influencer marketing this way. Why not get a big Instagram star to post a photo with one of your products? You can even sell directly through several social media channels. Pinterest, for example, now lets you sell straight through your account, and so does Facebook if you use the right WooCommerce plugin or Shopify plugin for your page. Don't be afraid to ask your friends to share your page and your special offers either. Note that with both content marketing and social media, the main objective is to provide value. If you don't do that, people won't follow you and you won't have an audience to sell to. PPC is pay-per-click marketing. This is an excellent tool for getting more sales, but it costs money. Basically, these platforms charge you only when someone clicks on an advert. This means that if the adverts don't work, then you won't be charged anything. You can set a minimum cost per click, though the more you're willing to spend, the more your advert will show up in competitive niches. The biggest ad platforms for PPC are Google AdWords, meaning your advert appears on Google, and Facebook ads. And they must work. Amazon spends up to $1 million a day on AdWords. And particularly useful is the remarketing feature of AdWords that lets you advertise products that people have previously considered buying back to your old visitors when they're on other sites.